Hello, welcome back.
Hello.
So, what happens when passion, purpose, and parenting collide? So, tune in as we dive in, with our amazing guests, where they share their journey of building a business and a family, but with intention. Welcome, my friends.
Thank
Hey,
you.
glad to
Thanks
have.
for having us.
Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate you both, and this is the first time that we do have a couple as a guest. So thank you so much for doing this with us. Maybe introduce yourself, guys.
You go first.
Sure. I'm Dustin Vance. Self-employed, um, married with two beautiful children, 2.5-year-old son and a 4.5-year-old daughter.
Amazing.
And
Welcome.
he runs our Google Ad division of the company. And I'm
Okay.
Anneliese Vance, wife, mom, also of two. And I am a project manager, fractional CMO, marketing vendor broker. So I always say I'm the matchmaker of marketing vendors. So when you need that Instagram live person, just let me know.
Oh, please. Yes, absolutely. Yes. And, we should definitely be doing, yeah, I look forward to that. And also, wow, I like it. Actually, the way you guys have planned, it works out perfectly because a lot of times the, our wives that are doing better in organizing, like making sure everybody's okay, from eating, from, like you guys run everything. I love it. So I think you guys have a perfect, you know, the candidacy there is just amazing. I appreciate you guys sharing this. So how did you come up with this? Maybe first introduce us about your business. What is it about? And how long has it been? Like working and stuff like that. Please.
Yeah, so I have been around digital marketing, advertising, sales, and operations, and all of that since 2007. I was
Okay.
in corporate sales and did that for almost 14 years until they
Okay.
decided they didn't like that I was in the 21st century using networking to grow my business.
Okay.
And then this one over here said, "Why don't you start that consulting company you've always talked about?" So I did. And
Nice.
I remind him when things get tough, it is his fault because it was his idea. And yeah, so I started just consulting, just, whatever people were going to pay us for. Because at the time we had a mortgage, we had an 8-month old. 4 months later, we conceived our son. So by the end of that year, we had two under two. And Google Ads has always been something that I've really believed in, always been passionate
Okay.
about. I really think it's one of the best places to get a return on investment. And that is not to put down anything else, it's just the one that made the most sense to me. I
Okay.
was fortunate enough to be married to a brilliant man who is self taught in running it.
Okay.
He'd been around it since 2007, obviously being married to me, but still surprises me with what he can figure out and who we can help because he's able to be very creative. What do you always say,
Amazing.
sweetie?
I make your promises come
You
true.
make my promises come true. That's right.
There you go.
And then, as a good husband should. And let's see. So yeah, we honed down to Google Ads, and October 22, we honed down to focusing on dad-owned businesses. So we do done
Okay.
for you Google Ads for dad-owned businesses. That is
Okay.
our main offering that we have. But I'm also by
Amazing.
trade a fractional CMO, project manager. I do data analysis. Um,
Okay.
and the marketing vendor broker bit came because everyone kept coming to me saying, "Annalise, do you know?" And I kept saying yes. And I said, "Well, I may as well get paid to do this." So now
Right.
we
Right.
have not just marketing vendors, but we also have parenting vendors. We have a
Okay.
financial planner. We have a life insurance person. We have a
All right.
payroll person. So anything about business or parenting for family owned businesses, we have and are able to offer people. And I always say when people ask if I know them, either yes or I will find them. Because you can
Mm-hmm.
find pretty much anyone on LinkedIn. I just
Right.
met a dating coach on Monday. So, if single dads
Amazing.
want to get back in the game, then I got that
Right.
too. So
Amazing.
um,
Amazing.
just depends on what people need.
Oh, great, great. Thank you so much. I think this is you're needed in this current day and age. So this is a very lucrative and also very useful niche to have. So we truly appreciate you what you're doing. So let's dive in a little bit into the parenting. So how do you get to do the the parenting along with the other responsibilities? Because now that you're parents and also your business, all those things going on at once.
Start.
Is there more of a specific question to parenting? Because parenting is kind of a generalized that can kind of go any direction.
Absolutely. For instance, like you got things going on. We have things at home, whether you have to send kids to school or the kids are sick. You have to like make sure that you're taking care of them, or let's say is it's time to pick them up, and then we have things going on at that time. Maybe there's appointments that they're supposed to be met from the business standpoint. So how do you get to manage that at the same time?
Really, it's just priorities.
All right.
When we started this, we started with an end goal that we were looking to achieve. I
Mm-hmm.
think oftentimes people start a business to fulfill an immediate problem, but they don't think
Right.
far enough out in the sense of what's the grand plan that they want it to do.
Okay.
For us, it was we were looking for ways for her to be a stay-home mom,
Okay.
um, and then the reality of it was once she became a stay-home mom and she was able to be a little bit more full-time, the thought
Right.
was like, why can't I be around more?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And the thought process was, why does the man always have to be the one that goes out and leads the family and all that stuff? Why can't both parents be home?
Right.
And you cut out 50% of the parenting when you know the man's not in the picture as much either. If the kids only ever see
Mm-hmm.
that the husband's always gone out there providing a living, but he's not at
Mm-hmm.
home providing other things that are essential, you know,
Mm-hmm.
providing a living is one part of the equation. Um, and so we hit a certain point where I was able to step away, and it's kind of been a reality. And so, to kind of answer your question on the parenting side of things, is we stepped back and we said, what do we want more? And we set
Mm-hmm.
out to solve that problem, um, not the immediate problem.
Okay.
Some people start out with the immediate problem of finances, of
Right.
like maybe pay a bill, but for us, it was more of a we were looking for a specific lifestyle that we were wanting to produce.
And I'll keep talking. Oh, you're
Amazing.
back. Okay.
Amazing. Yes. No. No. I'm trying to see you. Because I'm trying to organize everything at the same time. So I think once we
Great.
finish this section of parenting, I will definitely be seeing what the folks are talking about in the chat, so we can address
Okay.
those as well.
Okay.
I
Amazing.
would say the last thing I would
Amazing.
add is on the parenting side of
Yes.
things, we had to settle, and even though it's kind of a cliche, societal accepted statement, but it's actually a very inaccurate statement. Um, is we're setting out to raise adults. We're not raising children.
I already know how to be
Right.
children.
Correct. They don't need our help on how to be children, but they need us to prepare them for what's coming up in the world.
Right.
And so, it just in that statement, it really kind of sets the heading. If you're out to raise children, then
Right.
mission accomplished. But if you're looking to raise adults, then um, it
That's where the
sets the
work
heading
is.
of thought process, decision making, preparation,
Right.
maturity,
Mm-hmm.
responsibility. So it kind of sets um, what it is that we need to do.
Right.
And so for us, because kids are kind of, some people do quality over quantity. Some people do a lot of quantity, but there's not a lot of quality. For
Right.
us, it's a little bit mix of both because we have a little bit of freedom. One of the nice things about
Right.
what it is that I do in the background
Right.
is I'm not set to a set hours.
Mm-hmm.
I can adjust and pivot according to the
What's
needs
needed.
of
Right.
our family.
Right.
So, but that's just kind of more of something that we were wanting that when we were looking for an opportunity or a solution, it
Right.
was kind of more the direction. that we were looking for.
And Suleiman, if I can
Absolutely.
add, this is
Yes,
something that
please.
we talked about when we were
Mm-hmm.
dating, when we were
Mm-hmm.
20 and 22 years old. We're older than that
Right.
now. Um,
Right.
and this is something we talked about then. We talked about that we wanted me home.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about, it'd be nice to have him home, but me, at least one parent being home was the priority
Right.
because of how both of us grew up. And, this isn't a story about our upbringing, but let's just say that
Right.
there were reasons why it was very important to us that at least one parent was going to be home with the kids, and they weren't going to be raised by someone who may still be a kid themselves, may still, be
Right.
18 at a daycare.
Right.
And we wanted to homeschool. You talked about, school and pickup. It's not a problem because we're at home. Sometimes
Right.
our daughter does school at 9 o'clock at night because
Okay.
that's when she's in a focus mode.
Mm-hmm.
And, the other thing I would say is we've taken it a day at a time, or just kind of like a chunk at a time, or like I'd say an adaptation at a time,
Right.
right? Like, I mean, first, we had an 8-month old, and so she wasn't walking yet. Well, then she was walking. So then it was a little more dynamic to keep up with. And then we had two of
Right.
them. And, now we definitely have two of them and they can collaborate. Um,
Amazing.
but it's just very intentional, but with flexibility. And what I mean by
Mm-hmm.
that, Monday, Tuesday, the kids know that they're with me. We're going to go out on our adventures. Wednesday, Thursday, they go out with daddy for adventures. Friday's a family day. But our daughter is quality time for her love language, and our son is physical touch. And so we'll always check in with each other on, hey,
Right.
do you think Lily needs to go with you today? I'll take Quinn. Is your schedule lighter? Could that work? And so he has helped me not be so
Mm-hmm.
rigid, and I've helped him have a little bit more structure
Right.
in order to feed off of our strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Because I miss plan and schedule, and oh my gosh, it's 1:58 and we got to get on here now. And he's like,
Right.
it's
Right.
cool, we're good, we're good.
Right. Amazing.
So
Amazing.
we empower each other there, I would say, as well. But we also,
Amazing.
last thing, I apologize, we fill our
Mm-hmm.
kids in on what's going on. Now, our son has never known that he ever left the house for an outside client for 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
And he just, mommy and daddy are here. That's just his reality. Our daughter was 2.5 when we had to make that mature decision, which was super fun. So now
Mm-hmm.
she knows, she used to know, okay, what we're doing is going to help bring daddy home. And now it's to keep daddy home. And in raising
Right.
adults, we talk to our daughter, hey,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was today or yesterday, she looked at Quinn, who's our son, and she
Mm-hmm.
said, you've got to let daddy work so he can stay home. I mean, a 4-year-old version of that, but that's what she was saying. And I was
Right.
like, yes. Like, because
Yes.
sometimes you got to say things for 6 months before it sinks in, but
Right.
she's getting it and she understands. And I want her to understand the sacrifice that goes into business ownership too. So,
Amazing. This is important. Yes, because a lot of times, when we don't let them know, like, by the way, for instance, this is a meeting, I have to attend to this. When I'm finished, we have our schedule. We're going to do XYZ as we talked
yep.
about. Then
Yep.
they get to understand those boundaries and understand, oh, yeah, there's work we have to respect. There's school when I go to school, something, like I respect. So they know those different time blocks, and they learn to appreciate them as they grow. This is beautiful. And also, I was going to ask you, how do you prioritize your, like your date nights and maybe with the self care, like in terms of, But I see that you already have a kind of schedule, as you mentioned, how you
Mm-hmm.
have time for, this is the time with the daughter, like this is the time with mommy and dad, I'm sure you have that already set up already, correct?
We do. It's every Saturday night. Now, it's a little
Mm-hmm.
interesting, and I've done videos on LinkedIn about our daughter being a terrorist negotiator. So,
Mm-hmm.
date nights recently have been a movie on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But, we just took every quarter, we take a husband and wife only trip. My parents come and watch the kids. We get out, just us, so we can actually talk and have adult conversation. And that's even scheduled every quarter. Um,
Amazing.
and, it's not completely non-negotiable if something like super
Mm-hmm.
urgent was going on, but
Right.
it's definitely a priority.
Yeah, I think it goes back to my original statement of priorities.
Right. Right.
I mean, if you prioritize work all the time, then what happens is something in your life gets compromised. We made a decision that we'll work on our marriage. We made a decision that we were going to put each other first, so it goes
Right.
God, family, then work. Is kind of
Right.
the way the flow goes.
Right.
You even told Quinn yesterday, if I have to pick between mommy or mommy or you, I'm picking mommy. I mean, we say that to our 2 and 4 year old.
So
Mhm.
it's a lot of times imbalance happens because people lose their priorities, or
Mhm.
people drift to the things that they think they're good at, and they neglect the
Right.
things that they need to improve in.
Mhm.
And when I coach people and I'm in relationship with people and I'm serving people, I'll oftentimes say it's not the things that you believe that are true that hurt you, but it's the things that are false that you
think
believe
are
are
true.
true that do hurt you.
Right.
And so most of the time people
Yes.
want to camp out on what they believe is true, but they never look around at the things that they've adopted in their life that are false, that are getting in the
Right.
way of the fruit that they're wanting. So um, for us, it's a priority. And sometimes, we might go a little bit longer in a rhythm, um,
Mhm.
and we may not get a date night or whatever, but we make sure it's planned and that it's a priority. And
Yeah, we'll reschedule it. I mean, Dustin's an introvert. I'm not. I'm
Mhm.
going to tell that real quick.
Mhm.
The longer you keep
Mhm.
talking to us, and so he'd be like, "Hey,
Mhm.
like, I could do date night tonight, but I'm not really mentally there. Can we
Mhm.
reschedule?" But we have something to reschedule from because it's on the calendar.
Mhm.
I apologize.
I would say on that, usually if there's a grinding of the gears, or somebody's lost in a priority in an unhealthy
Right.
way, it's because
Right.
of poor communication. I'd say
Mhm.
most relationship challenges, even in parenting, is bad communication or lack of
Lack of,
communication.
yeah.
Right.
um, and it's like with children, for example, the reason why we're in the direction that we're in, we didn't. There's nothing wrong with the school system. I'm not poo-pooing it. I'm not tearing it down. We chose not
Mhm.
to because I couldn't always guarantee the individual that was going to be building into my child when I'm not there.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
I didn't want to forfeit the responsibility to somebody else and then live
Right.
with the consequences of that poor judgment that that individual put into my child. And I can't get mad about it. However, when my children do something and we are literally their number one relationship that's in their life, I
Right.
always have to step back and go, where did this come from? What's the influence? And it's us. And so
Mhm.
I have to correct it here before I correct it there.
Right. Mhm.
But versus when you go into a little bit more of a macro social settings, you
Mhm.
forfeit the freedom of choice in some things because you're choosing a different path. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you also have to accept that you're going to allow other people to imprint ideas and thoughts on your children that you may not want there. And we
Right.
chose not to. And we see the reward of it. And, I had somebody argue me one time. They weren't really arguing. It was usually when you have two people who come together with two different beliefs,
Right.
they don't want to
Right.
they don't want to walk away feeling wrong. So what they do is they try to change you.
Want real results that last? Stop wasting time on quick fixes. A no-fat approach to sustainable fitness, radiant health, and mental well-being is your roadmap to lasting transformation. Learn how to fuel your body, move with joy, and cultivate mental strength, all without the restrictive rules. Start your journey to sustainable success. Download your guide today.
Mhm.
Um, versus them admitting that maybe there's something there that they can think about. And
Right.
so this lady started trying to tell me, well, their social life, they won't have any social life, and they won't have any social skills, and all this
Mhm.
other stuff. If they don't go to school, they don't learn the stuff. And it's just like,
Mhm.
I promise you, like, I go out in public, my children have no social, like, they have no problems. Like, they will walk up to a stranger.
Yeah.
They have amazing social
They have
skills.
better social skills than
And
most.
and
Yeah.
again, that's not
With
tearing it down.
adults, not just the kids.
And that's not a tearing
Right.
down the lady's
Mhm.
perspective. It was
Mhm.
just the direction that the lady chose. And so that's what she's solidified her argument around and her belief around, when it's not true.
Mhm. Right.
Because when you have involved and engaged parents, that's part of your responsibility as a parent, is to make sure you're cultivating healthy social life. And if you're the number
Right.
one influence, they should see that you're having a healthy social life.
Yeah.
And they learn and they
Right.
mirror and mimic that. So that's a responsibility we chose to take. we
Yeah.
chose not to forfeit it.
I
And
think this is
our kids, they will gravitate to talking to adults before they will gravitate to talking to kids, because our daughter's pretty self-aware. I mean, there's those times where I think she's self-selectively not self-aware, but she is very
hmm hmm
self-aware. And she
hmm
knows she's above some of the kids sometimes. And she's like, I can't relate to this. Like so like when we go to story time every Monday, she hangs out with the librarian at her desk. And like
mm,
kids will come up and talk, and she'll be like, oh, Miss Shannon will be right back. I mean, she's
hmm
like way older than
right.
4. But she's
hmm
around us majority of the time. That's who she's around.
right.
Or
hmm
there's other adults there for the play day, because we're going to hang out generally with other parents that are stay at home, or
right.
homeschooling and things like that. So like I wrote about this a couple days ago, that
hmm
this is their normal, right? Like they go and drive by like a daycare or preschool, and she's like, mommy, what's that? And she has
hmm
no clue. Like
hmm
this is what she thinks normal is, and I never want that to change.
hmm
So that's something that's pretty important to us.
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, and it is challenging for people like the lady that was not criticizing, the one that was like discussing with you, Dustin, about why she thinks is that as good, like is not as good of an option. I think it's because, for instance, before the before the pandemic, I was
Mm-hmm.
working out, more, like, most of the time I was outside. By the time with the pandemic, you're there all the time, so it's totally different. So you is it the adjustment is not easy. So for a lot of people, when they think like, okay, you're going to be there with your child and educate them and work and do everything else, is too much for them to understand, and also they think you won't be able to handle it. But in reality, once you face it and you train yourself through time, you'll be just perfect. And actually, I love it in the sense because you make sure that all your morals, they transfer to them, and
Mm-hmm.
is much easier that way. Because a lot of times when they come back from school, they say, no, but Madam so and so say, like something else. They argue with you on things that based on on how you're raised. It should not,
Mm-hmm.
it should not be a discussion about it.
Right.
Because you have somebody else on the other side that believe that, which is, it can be good in a sense, like you can educate them, and then they can know, by the way, okay, so school, there's another school of thought, and my
Perspective.
parents, they have a different which is good.
Yeah.
So I mean, I truly appreciate that. I think it's an amazing thing. I have another guest that was here before. He's doing the same thing, homeschooling, and it needs dedication, and and I think you guys, it demonstrate how determined you are, and it shows in your business, it shows your home. This is beautiful. We truly appreciate you doing this. But what about when you have the disagreement? Have you shown them how to handle
Mhm.
disagreements? Because this is something that definitely they'll have to learn as adults.
I'll let you take that one, sweetie.
Um, we're probably not always the best at handling disagreements. We're
Mm-hmm.
literally completely two different people with two different
Mm-hmm.
backgrounds. But one of the
Mm-hmm.
things that our kids do see is that
Mm-hmm.
we work it out,
Mm-hmm.
and we do talk it
Mm-hmm.
through. And
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, or the priority of the day, is peace in the
Right.
house.
Right.
And so they see communication. Um, if they ever do see us, a little bit more of a higher volume discussion, um,
Mm-hmm.
their desires to mediate, believe it or not, they want to get in
Right.
between us. They want to time us out, because in their mind, they can't imagine or fathom
Mm-hmm.
us being at odds with each other.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so having them as a constant audience is a constant reminder for us to figure it out
Yeah.
quicker
Mm-hmm.
than later.
It's a whole nother
Mm-hmm.
level of living in
Um,
a glass house.
Mm-hmm.
I had a mentor once tell me that children are a measuring stick to your life, and,
Right.
and it's really
Right.
true.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if anything, like whenever we do have disagreements, or if um, we're just we're neglecting something that we have forgotten, um,
Mm-hmm.
they do see an example of kind of working through, if that makes sense. And one of the things that
Okay.
I want our kids to know is that conflict is going to happen. Even in the best of relationship, there's going to be disagreements, and it's
Absolutely.
okay to have disagreement. It's, how you handle that and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't sit here and tell you that we're a perfect example, because
Because 2 nights ago, our daughter had to mediate.
yeah. So, you know, there's always something, when you're spinning so many plates, you're dropping the ball somewhere. And
Right.
I would say the biggest thing is, I want our kids to see grace for the most part, that,
Right.
you know, that when I enter in somebody's life and I start to coach and I start to mentor them, or I start to work with them or build into them, I let them know
Right.
right away, I'm probably going to fail you.
Mm-hmm.
I let them know I'm just a guy. I don't have it all figured out. And I'm probably going to say something that will offend. And that's not my
Mm-hmm.
heart. But my
Mm-hmm.
heart and my desire is growth in that person's life. But through that process for communication, I'm probably
Mm-hmm.
going to say something, that is going to hurt when I didn't mean it to hurt. And
Right.
so, I ask for a lot of times a lot of grace. And so, as we extend a lot of grace to our children,
Right.
especially when they're picking paint off the wall, or they're breaking something, we
Right.
ask for them to extend us grace too, because it's
Mm-hmm.
important. Because without grace, then who can be judged or not judged.
Right.
So, it's something, an area that I think Annalise and I are always improving in, because she's more type A driven and I'm way more relaxed. I take more of a slower process to things, when she's kind of like, if it's a task on her list, she wants it done now.
Yesterday.
If we can get there
Right. Right.
faster by 15 minutes, she wants to take that route. If
Mm-hmm.
I want to take a safer, more
Mm-hmm.
reliable route,
Right.
it's a little bit of a different process. But at the end of the day, so long as we get to the destination and the goal, it's what
Mm-hmm.
matters.
And Solomon,
Yeah.
what I would add is, it's let us teach them about just conflict in general. Like
Right.
if her and her brother, now that they're older,
Mm-hmm.
when they were younger, like this wasn't possible. But now that they're a little older, I'm like, work it out and then apologize.
Mm-hmm.
This is,
Mm-hmm.
and I read recently, I can't remember where I read it, but that is one of the points of sibling rivalry. It's one of the greatest growth places that people or kids are going to have in conflict management. But our daughter will say, "Hey, did Daddy look at the feelings chart?" Because
Mm-hmm.
we've done her feelings chart since 2.5, and if
Mm-hmm.
she does witness or seeing us argue, we'll go in and we'll talk to her, and we'll let her know everything's going to be okay. Mommy and Daddy are still here. We're good. We
Mm-hmm.
were just working something out, and we'll say, like, you and Quinn need to, and she'll go.
Mm-hmm.
It's starting to click a little bit more, but one of the core memories I have, when I was, let's say I was around 11 or 13 or somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
My mom
Okay.
and my dad were having a really hard time. My mom was overcoming some challenges, and it took a very loyal, patient person like my dad,
Right.
to stick it out. And I remember him sitting on the porch with me saying, "I want to leave, but I'm not going to. I'm going to work it out with your mom. I'm going to do that for you and your sister." And it was just such a, I mean, I can picture sitting on the porch with him right now. And it was really one of the paintbrushes, so to speak, that
Mm-hmm.
really, is carried through my whole life. I think it's why, I'm probably loyal to a fault, and will maybe, stay in some things that aren't the healthiest. And
Right.
it was a little slower to learn that in my life than someone
Mm-hmm.
else, because loyalty and steadfastness were such things that I saw modeled growing up. And I want our kids to see that too.
And I'd say the last thing to that would be, whenever there is conflict, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like parents have this infallible, like, I know everything, and I can't be held to account. And I think that's
Right.
actually false. I find whenever we do have a situation, and if I do find I'm wrong,
Right.
um, I apologize. I apologize to her. I ask for forgiveness. And then I turn right around and I will go to my children's room and I will kneel down beside their bed and I'll get on their level and I will apologize to my children. And
Right.
I'll ask for forgiveness from them because I set a poor example. Because at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, I don't want my children to marry individuals
that don't know how to
that don't know
apologize.
how to apologize, or can only live in the offense and
Right.
not in the freedom of grace. And so I will go and I will kneel down with them and I will admit to them, like, hey, daddy made a mistake.
Right.
And every single time they throw their arms around my neck and they say, it's okay, you are a good daddy. And they remind me of who I can be. Just because I failed in that moment doesn't mean that I'm a
Right.
failure as a whole. And
It's very
so
humbling.
I'm accountable. I'm not only accountable to my clients or to our clients, I'm accountable to my wife. I'm accountable to my children.
Right.
And this thing called what we're doing, marriage, family, whatever, really cannot function with accountability in all directions. Sometimes
Without
it's
accountability.
without accountability. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's tiring to eat humble pie.
Not your favorite.
Right.
It's not filling. There's 0
Right.
calories. But I never want my children to not apologize. If it means that they can establish healing and they can establish healthy communication and relationships, then there's nothing wrong with apologizing. And so I'll do that. And I'm happy to
Amazing.
lay that pride down for my family, to set that example.
Absolutely.
And so our kids are quick to apologize whenever they have conflict between each other. And I'll look at them like, all right, you need to apologize. And they immediately turn around and they're hugging, and there's no pride or anything.
Right.
That they hug and they go, that's okay, I forgive you. And they're back to playing again. And I think a lot of that is
Nice.
because of the example that we do. And it's not an easy road, especially
Absolutely.
with, all the things that are pulling at you mentally and time
Right.
wise. It would be so much easier to just be like, they're tough kids. I can, they'll deal with it. They'll learn. But it's really in that moment, it's time to set the example.
Well,
So
Right.
And I think a lot of people as a whole, but I think men as well, they might think that they are, well, and women too. So just people, that they might think that they're being seen as weak when they apologize, but I know how much strength it takes. It's something I'm ever growing in. He's better at it than I am, because I feel like I'm admitting some kind of fault sometimes when I'm, apologizing, and that's not the point. And he's teaching me that, but
Right.
it is so important for our kids to see. And,
Amazing.
They'll do it out in public too. Like if they're at one of their fitness classes or story times or whatever, and something happens,
Right.
is I'll see them apologize. And I have so many parents comment to me about our kids and how they interact
The
socially.
proper.
So again, back to
Yes.
that lady.
yeah, and it's really kind of funny you say that,
Amazing.
because it's like we live in a society where you can apologize to people blue in the face, and they don't know how to receive it, because when you hold on to offense, you feel like you're owed something. But when you accept an apology, you're ripping up the IOU,
Yep.
and you can no longer be a victim. And
Right.
so you can apologize for something to blow in the face, but if people don't know how to receive an apology and allow it to end at that point, then the problem just stays the problem, and you're just constantly solving something that's unproductive. So I want my children to be able to see an example of a healthy apology, not just a backhanded apology, but a sincere apology, but to also
Right.
release the offense of whatever happened, so that they're not carrying that forward, which is really important.
Right.
Because if you can't release the offense, then all you're going to do is carry that you're just going to relive the problem over and over and over again. You won't experience the freedom that you're looking for. And so that's an
Absolutely.
example that we work hard to make sure we do.
Oh, this is beautiful. And so along the what we have just spoken about, what do you see as the most challenging part of being together, besides the handling of the communication, or you know the like the work, or just the educating the kids? What is the most challenging part of being together as parents?
Honestly, we don't really have an answer there, because we're kind of in the early stages of discussing that.
Uh-huh.
I was talking to some people that I do trust, and they have some influence in my life, and I was just kind of letting them
Hmm.
know kind of like what we hit, because my
Hmm.
mindset is, if you're right there in front of a problem, like for example, if there's trash on the ground and it needs to be picked up, and
Right.
you're right there, just pick it up.
Right. Right.
But people have this mindset going, well, it's not my job. I don't have to do it. Somebody else will do it. But they go into a restaurant, they'll destroy, an area. They'll leave food all over the ground and all that. And they go, that's not my problem. It's my server. That's why I tip them $2. When that's an unhealthy way of viewing it. So my mentality is like, if we're, as a family, it's just like, if, dishes need to be put up or a room needs to be picked up or something. And if you're there and you notice it, then do it. Like there's no, it's just, but as our responsibility levels increase and all that, and we're always looking for ways to kind of offload unproductive responsibility. We've had a couple people mention to us that maybe setting up some roles. And at first I resisted it, but I'm starting to see a little bit of wisdom in the desire to create roles and establish, what we're responsible for. But the thing that I am trying to avoid in our family is the complacency of, or the expectancy of, what, it's their job. They're going to do it. I don't have to be bothered. And it's like, well, part of servitude is doing stuff that is not expected of you. Going the extra mile is doing stuff that is not expected of you, and it's inconvenience. But if it means the ship moves forward and the team wins together, then it does that. I have not figured out a way on how to communicate that to the best, because Anneliese is a little bit more roles and task oriented. And we're bringing two different ideologies to the table. While we're on the ocean trying to tread water, and we've got two children, and somebody comes up and goes, "Here's another one. Figure it out." So we don't really have. We don't not yet. No, there's not another one. We don't have another one yet. But my point is,
let's just be clear.
But my point
some
is
clarity
that
there.
We
Okay.
have an answer on that one, and it's okay to be in a place and not have an answer. But we are in the process of discussing a rhythm that works for us.
Well, and Suleiman, I, of course, have a different answer. I would say Dustin said the words that is our biggest challenge it's just the two completely different ways that we approach life, and realizing, the number one mentor in my life, she always says, if there are two ways to get to a place, I will find one, my husband will find the other. And I think for me, it's realizing that that's okay. That, as long as we get there and, as he says, it's moral and it's ethical, then it's all right. And I think just also, just that programming that comes from how we were raised, that plus the two different personalities and the approaches, and just, but the fact that we're always willing to communicate it, as ugly as that might be sometimes, I feel like it's less ugly than it used to be. Then the ship is still moving forward. So that'd be, but I think that's any couple, right? I mean,
absolutely.
One of my favorite quotes in the world is, if two of you are exactly the same, one of you isn't necessary. I mean, we don't need two of me and we don't need two of him. We need us bringing our strengths
complement
together.
each other.
And seeing each other's blind spots, and our kids seeing that, because not to be cute here, but your podcast is called Dad Puzzles. I mean, that is a family, right? Like, my daughter and I are very similar in some aspects and very different. And she's very similar with Dustin in some and very different in others. And we all make different puzzles, right? And it's, I'm a little bit more empathetic, I think we can say. So, that's one of my strengths that I feel, but he's a little less emotionally attached sometimes, and sometimes that's needed. And that's a positive. And it's just knowing when to use those strengths when they're strengths, and covering for each other when they're weaknesses. But you wanted to add something.
And I would say, like, in the process of like not having an answer, I would also say, for example, like, I'm the primary cook in the family. I'm pretty much primarily the cleaner too. And so I like a tidy space. I like a little bit of organization. I can tolerate clutter because, like, we got two little tornadoes running around and they don't know everything.
Absolutely.
But, part of my thought process, and something I've been filtering on, I've been kind of thinking about, is we can get into arguments over roles and all that, or we can set our mindset to the task of making enough money and then go, you know what, I hire a house cleaner. or I
Hmm.
hire somebody to pre-prep food.
Meal prep.
And
Right.
some people can look at me and be like, well, aren't you being lazy and all that? And it's like, no, I've only got so much time in a day. I've only got so
Right.
much mental capacity. And if
Hmm.
I'm spending that time doing this over here, I'm taking it from something over here. And so if it means I have to serve a few more clients so that I
Hmm.
can pay somebody else to have a better life, and my life has
Right.
gotten so big that I need help with it, then
Right.
what's wrong with that? If somebody's willing to do that service for us, then it's a win in all
Right.
directions. It's not about being, an elite status or anything like that. It's part of just solving the
Hmm.
equation of just not enough. And
Right.
so some of the things that we're kind of working through right now is like, once we kind of settle a little bit more of a heading in some of the direction that we want to head, is what else do we want in that equation? Like, what do we want that lifestyle to look like? And,
Okay.
having somebody come through the house, even once a week just to do busy work, so to speak, that, her or I don't have to do, that's a
Right.
2 hours a week that I could be going, hey kid, let's go to the zoo, or hey honey, let's go on a date,
Right.
let's get a babysitter. You know, things that I can't buy now. I can buy it with money by paying somebody else to do it in my life, so I can free up the time to go over there and do the things that I'm more needed in her life than I am needed in
Right.
cleaning, because she doesn't care about the cleaning, but I do. Does that make sense?
Right.
And so that's part
Right.
of the thought process and decision making of going, okay, like if this is the grand picture of what it is that I'm looking for, and I want more time with her, and I want more time with my children, then I have to look at things, what are getting in the way, what are my options and solutions. I
Right.
have a gentleman that I'm building into, and he's become a really good friend of mine, and he's come up on some challenges, and some of it's financial, and he started freaking out, and I just looked at him and I said, man, be grateful it's financial. I said finances are the easiest thing to fix. All it is you out earn the problem, and it's no longer the problem.
Right.
Prioritize your spending, prioritize your budgets, find
Right.
something that you can give yourself a raise without permission,
Right. Hmm.
and you're good to go. You've solved your problem. It's a little bit different if you've been given 6 months to live, and now you got to go to your bucket list and go, how much can I get this off? That's a little bit more
Right.
challenging.
Hmm.
A lot of problems though are financial, but we lock ourselves into our solutions, the quality and the availability of our solutions based off of an hour to dollar ratio, when it doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily have to be that way. If you can only make 60 grand a year, 40 to 60
Hmm.
hours a week, that's all you'll ever make.
Hmm.
So you may never be able to have the option of a house cleaner. And so my dad would look at me and be like, we can clean our own house, and it's the pride. And it's like, that's great. You're right, Dad. You're right. But I sure as heck
Hmm.
missed you, when I hit about 12, being my youth pastor. I missed you being my coach in T-ball and baseball, because you had
Hmm.
to prioritize work and paying for a family of six. I sure as heck missed that. And I sure as heck wouldn't
Right.
have minded having a cleaner come through and get those extra 2 hours. So when you start to remove, and again, it goes back to the thought process of,
Right.
it's not the things that you believe that are true, but it's the things that
Hmm.
you believe are true that are false that get in the way. And
Or what your parents always did.
correct. And it's just like, if we have the ability to write our future, then it's all on the table, and we're looking for ways and scenarios to do that. And I'm more than
Amazing.
happy to be able to provide that, as a family, if it means that I'm more available and more accessible. The goal is for me not to, the goal is not to be less accessible. The goal is for me to be more accessible to the people that I love and care. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're gonna transition. Um, wow, that's very important. Because what you have said, shared, I can expand on it again and again, and in a sense that it's gonna be different in every family. So I'm sure folks they will see where they are, and they have to make that adjustment, you know, on their own. And in business, you can equate this with scaling. Like if you're on a scale, you have to start to allocate like some of your duties, so that you're available to do more on something that is going to help you to grow and such, which is what you're doing at the moment. This is very, very helpful. Did you have anything else to add, based on what we have spoken about? Because we're going to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. What's the impact of that with the family? With your family life, when you trying to have those things going on at the same time.
I think Dustin covered it just fine. So we can go to the
Per-
next question.
Amazing, Amazing. And so I know so far you guys have great communication, as a couple. This is very beautiful. And also just accepting when you're wrong, I think, is something that is beautiful and honorable to have, and do. Because sometimes, like you're even pushed to, like it touches you. For instance, like your son wants to hang out with you, but they have to sleep early because tomorrow is time for school. So be like, but you gotta go to sleep. But so the last vision of me seeing him go to sleep and happy, it touches you. You're like, oh man, like you stop everything like you're doing. You're trying to, like like accompany them with sleep and everything else. But so some of these things you can do based on the schedule and what or the reality of things in terms of apologizing. But also, I think the more you do it, the more you have that love. I mean, things just flow easily. For instance, if your wife, for instance, Dustin is doing the cooking all the time and he's feeling ill.
That's takeout, Suleiman. If I cook, it's takeout.
And I love it. Do it more. 100%. I love
Huh?
it when she cooks.
My cooking's
Yeah.
takeout.
100% Mexican, Indian, do it. I'm down.
Oh my
Bring it
goodness.
in.
Yes. Yes. Oh, for me, it's vice versa. My wife, she's the cook, and she only loves my fish because they're fried or whatever. That's the only thing I can do. And my kids, they make fun of me that I can make the simplest things possible. But yeah. So,
Do
but
that.
whenever it's, yes, you know what I mean. So whenever there's a problem in one, or there's a like a priority on something else, then we always adjust because we love each other and we know the bigger goal. That's how it goes. Because I think when we are big, when we become too rigid, that's where we have problems.
Yeah.
And amazing, amazing. So, are you guys? Let's see, you have some people they have where like whenever they have conflicts they will not even show discuss anything in front of the kids if it's something that is severe. They will try to do things behind the door. But then you have couples that are very vocal in a sense that almost like enemies, but then they will discuss until in the end everything is good. But kids, they get to see the ugly side of things. I don't know which what endpoint are you in.
I think it really comes down to like whatever the situation or the
Yeah, the
topic is,
topic.
and then
uh
how toxic it is between us.
Yeah.
right.
Biggest thing is we always are just looking, going, how much damage, and can we build from it, or are we
You're right.
doing long term damage? So we do
Hmm.
try to be mindful of
Amazing.
of things, but most of the time, most of our agreements are simply because we misunderstand each other,
Mm.
and
Right.
we don't mind our children seeing us go through the process of understanding each other.
Yeah.
Right.
I would agree. I would say it's based on the topic. Um,
Absolutely.
our daughter is very sensitive to emotional things, and so we
Hmm.
try to take that into consideration as well. Um,
Hmm.
but she's also like her mom, and she wants to be involved, and so
Right.
sometimes
Right.
there's no stopping them from being involved. Um,
Hmm.
it's just, I think, just like every situation in life, right? Like it's just situational. It
Absolutely.
really depends on what's going on at that day and that time, and what happened the day
Right.
before, and what are we prepping for. I mean, it always changes
Yeah,
it.
and there's no formula for it. And I
Mm-mm.
think the biggest thing for anybody I would say who's listening to us is there's not a perfect answer. You don't have it all figured
Right.
out. There's a lot of stuff in your programming from, you know, years ago, from the examples that your parents set that you don't think will play, that will come
Hmm.
out.
Yep.
And
Right.
I think it goes back to this thing that I was talking about, is like making sure you're giving yourself and your family grace, because you're going to screw it up. And it's not a
Right.
matter of the screw up. Here's an example. Like when I'm apologizing to my daughter, she never tells me how bad I was. She tells me how good I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an amazing and innocent thing, but it's an accurate thing in parenting too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've learned more from being a dad and from
Mm-hmm.
my children,
Right.
just from
Absolutely.
the unsolicited love and forgiveness and grace that they offer me.
Oh
It
man.
is absolutely humbling. But when she hugs my
Absolutely.
neck and she tells me I'm a good dad, she's
Hmm.
not telling me I'm. I'm a good dad in general. She's telling me that I will always be a good dad. She's telling me what my future is too. And
Mhm.
she doesn't, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if she is fully aware of what she means when she's doing it, but she's
Mm-hmm.
not telling me the 50 wrongs that I did, or she's not going, we
Mm-hmm.
have to hash this out. She's
Right.
hugging me going, I love you. And I know you can basically be better. And
We're
she's
moving
setting that
on.
bar for me. And
Right.
I want to rise to that because, that's important to me. It's not always
Right.
easy, but it is important
Mm-hmm.
to me.
No, but she will also call us out. Like, I think was it this morning or maybe yesterday? Because I think we had our discussion 2 days before. She goes, okay, when we go to nap, you guys have to be nice to each other. I mean, she'll slip those in there too.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
But
Right.
I mean, she's mature beyond her years, and she has no clue. But
Beautiful. Beautiful.
it'll hit you square between the eyes and be like, ooh, okay, like you want to be better.
Yeah, and
Right.
so it's
Absolutely.
I've learned a lot from that, and it also has
Mm-hmm.
taught me in correcting our children that I'm always telling them what they are, not what their actions are doing. If that makes sense, like I'm
Right.
always trying. If I have to correct them, if I have to correct them, I correct them, but then I let them know that they are good,
Mm-hmm.
that they are a blessing, that
Right.
they are loved, because
Amazing.
they do it for me too, and I feel and see the reward of that just
Mm-hmm.
from that relationship. So. Um, all I'm saying is that just don't think you have all the answers. Just be willing to be humble. If you're not
Absolutely.
humble, you will be humbled, and you don't want to go through the process of being humbled. Accept humility. It's
Absolutely.
way easier.
Absolutely. And what you said is definitely 100% correct. And also for families that let's say, because we have different backgrounds, the way you're raised. For instance, your kids, they will carry that and attract the energy of somebody in a similar situation, we hope. But then sometimes you
Oh.
have people that are coming from, no, because sometimes when they grow up they might like their own kids or whatever, like those things, as parents, they concern you, uh, but I'm saying in a sense that sometimes some like some of our listeners or some of the people that we coach or what, they have different backgrounds, and some of the, let's say is a lady or is a man, they grew up in a family where mom and dad, they're very vocal and I think almost disrespectful, so imagine you are in that marriage, like you're in that relationship, you to fix it, it's going to take some time, and
Mhm.
so those type of people, they definitely need more humility and grace to correct the other one and educate, and the whole coaching, and like with time they'll become better, but I know is we have all kinds of people in the world at the moment that are having different backgrounds, and for instance, what you just mentioned, how some people, they don't clean up because they say, oh yeah, I'm paying a tip, so they will clean up. But you have people that have been raised well. That's what I'm saying. Like like what you're mentioning, they will do things that are right, not necessarily about because I pay you or because it's your schedule or because of this kind of thing. Is almost reminds me of. I remember when like when I was beginning relationships, it was more like, oh, it's 50-50. I pay
Mm.
this part of the rent, you pay part of the rent. It's like, excuse me, like where I grew up. Now my history comes in where where I grew up. For instance, dad handle things, like no worries, dad will take care of this, mom is going to take care of the other stuff, but it's not going to be like I have to do this, you have to do that. Otherwise, it becomes like excuse me, are we family or are we roommates or something like that? So
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm rambling in a sense to prove the point that
You're good.
family, folks are from different backgrounds,
Yeah.
and we have to we are telling them, okay, by the way, if it's very hard for you, reach out to us, we can talk to you and on how we can fix that, because I think that like Dustin just shared that he's doing the coaching. This is beautiful. I do coaching as well, and folks, I think they need to understand that they're coming from different, they have different, like starting points. So it's not gonna be I'm gonna be like Dustin and Annalisa in, like overnight. No, it's gonna take some time. It's going to take some time, and you guys are doing a great work. So thank you so much for sharing this. So maybe we can switch gears a little bit into the self care, because this is very important. Very important part. How do you like help each other to grow? Like like Dustin, for instance, or you, analyst, in terms of bettering yourself in terms of your career or in terms of your building that humility or building that communication? How do you guys, like help each other to do that? It's very
Um,
broad.
yeah, self care is an interesting one because I think it has changed over the different seasons we've been in. Like when
Right?
she was dating me and she's like, "You want to
Mm-hmm.
be alone by yourself?"
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're nuts. But now that we have children, she's just like,
Uh-huh.
"Get the kids out of here." She's giving me the crazy eyes. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, if you know that if you're not out the door within 15 seconds, like, there's going to be, consequences. And so you're like, run. So I think it's really kind of changed. I would say
Mm-hmm.
an area that we're currently on solving, and
Mm-hmm.
we're a couple months out from being able to solve it, is
Okay.
pre-kids. We used to go on dates all the time. And if there was a
Mm-hmm.
disagreement or a misunderstanding to anything, we would go to dinner. We'd go in a public place. We would sit
Mm-hmm.
down and we would enjoy a really nice meal. And if we were there for 2.5 hours, we were there for 2.5 hours, and we talked through and we took turns hearing each other, you know.
Perfect.
But when you throw in the dynamics of children, you get
Right.
caught up in the tornado of life. Some things can fall away, or situations
Absolutely.
that come in that was unexpected, that are out of your control. And so we see, one of the things I think we both came to agreement on is that part of the rhythm of our life and the health of our relationship is, you can call it date night if you want, but time where we set it off to the side where this is exclusively us. We're in
Right.
a season where babysitters are a little bit harder to come by,
And
but that's
expensive.
quickly that's it's quickly being corrected. Um,
Uh-huh.
and we're also very picky over the
Mm-hmm.
babysitters that we let in, especially with a lot of the different opinions out there in the world.
Right.
Um, and But like, that's one of the things that we're working towards adding back in. I like downtime, meaning like, I do my best thinking. If I've got problems on my mind and if I'm taking care of everything else, I can't solve, if that makes sense. I can't
Mm-hmm.
apply creative energy to it. So I take one night a week after the kids go to bed for the most part, and that's my time. And I usually bounce back energized. I have answers, I have solutions. I'm able to process, I'm able to kind of.
Tired of fads and frustration? Build sustainable wellness for life. Forget quick fixes that fail to deliver lasting results. Imagine feeling energized, moving confidently, and radiating health for years. Achieving true wellness isn't about exhaustion or deprivation. It's about building habits that fit seamlessly into your life. Invest in yourself today for lasting fitness, radiant health, and mental well-being. Ready to transform your life? Click here to learn more. By purchasing the book, you'll gain lifetime access to updates, newsletters, future editions, and exclusive wellness bonuses from the author. Start your journey to wellness now.
Turn the brain off in some sections.
Right.
Anneliese is now starting to realize that she's needing it too. And so I'm having to develop the habit of checking in, going, "Hey, what day this week do you want?" And I'll take the kids so you can go out and do what you need to do. Go get, your pumpkin spice, whatever.
Be my basic
Yeah.
white chick. That's what he
Right.
calls me. So.
So,
Okay.
so right
Okay.
now
Okay.
it's, we're problem solving that one right now.
Amazing.
We're not bad at it,
Amazing.
but
Mhm.
I think it's just, we realized our needs have changed in that area
Right.
from when we were
Well, I mean,
just a
and this
couple to a
was
family.
my recognition of needing what I affectionately call his alone night. Because I did when we were dating. When you're dating, right? Like, you come over and we were together every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'd go to church. Like, that was our rhythm. So I didn't see what he did Monday through Thursday. So when we got married, and he goes, "This is my alone night." And I said, "You're what?" And I said, "You want to spend time by yourself on purpose without me? Like, what?" But
Yes.
now, when you add in, and when you have one kid, unless they're like colicky or
Right.
special needs, and I'm not putting any of that down. Those are my heroes, the parents that raised them, but
Mhm.
they're carry on, right? You stick the car seat, you walk through Target, like, they're fine. But you add in two, right? And you're potty training
Right.
one and you're nursing the other. And it's like
Yeah.
that
It
element
becomes hectic.
keeps changing, right? Because our
Right.
kids are 21 months apart. So at one point we did have 2 under 2.
Okay. Okay.
And so just me realizing like what I struggled with, and maybe someone listening to this might relate to this, especially just being type A, being task oriented, is I've got it, right? Like I'll be okay. I can figure it out. And I think so many people are accused of being selfish because they had the self-image and whatever you want to call it to speak up about it. And it was one of those things that I thought was right, but it was wrong. And I'm actually doing something good for my kids. I'm doing something good for my husband and myself. I mean, it is self-care, but it's good for them too, because then I come back and I'm not like up to here, as I call it. And it's actually loving to do it.
Right.
And I think that
Right.
that is such a misperception in the world. And as always, Dustin's ahead of his time. But a couple, see, I noticed. But a couple months ago, I was sniping at him about his alone night. I was being snarky, and he was like, "What's the deal? Like, I mean, we've been married for 17 years. This isn't new." And
Right.
so I took a step back, and I was like, "Why am I?" And I was like, "You know what? Because I resent it, because I want it too, but I haven't asked for it. So I can't be mad at him that I
Right.
didn't ask for it." Right? My mom always says the answer is always no if you don't ask. And if sometimes the answer is still no, but if you
Right.
speak up about it. And then we not only have our together night, so we have a
Right.
lot of nights, right? We've got the mornings with mom, the mornings with dad. We've got our date night, but we have his night, we have my night. We have
Right.
the day where I take our son and he takes our daughter, and then we switch, right? So they're all getting time, and it's all it takes very intentional planning.
Right.
But to go back to you mentioned, I don't know how far back it was, but that some people, I think it was when you were talking about the pandemic, and
Right.
that people were having to adjust. I think the people that struggle with adjusting don't want to adjust. And I think with us, it's things that we want. And so we're willing to figure it out.
Right.
We know it might take some time, right? I mean, we've
Right.
had, as our daughter's gotten older and she's been able to communicate certain likes, dislikes, things that bother her.
Right.
Again, our son's just either crying or he's happy, because that's just the stage he's in right now, which is his
Right.
favorite.
Right.
But our daughter, she's getting more mature and being able to communicate things. And we're like, okay, like, great. Like, let's figure this out. And, we'll tell her sometimes, hey, this might take us a minute to figure out. We're talking to her about patience, but we're going to figure it out because it's important.
Yeah, and I would add,
Right.
is I think you kind of called it out, is everything in most people's lives is a season. Your
Right.
kids are only going to be 2 for so long. Your kids are only going to be 4 for so long.
Right.
Yeah.
And those seasons
Right.
require different things. And I think when you recognize that it's a season, it's not a permanent thing. And it would be very
Right.
easy to accept, like, this is going to be forever. And then the future looks bleak. It's more looking at it going, this is a season. This is a small patch of time that this intensity is there.
Which is something you tell me all the time.
Yeah. And I have to remind her that, like, it's
That's right. That's right, TJ.
And so when you recognize it's a season, it produces hope. It gives you kind of a destination that you're working towards, a result. The other part of it is, I'm also a little bit cautious on self-care, because I know quite a few relationships that have an unhealthy level of self-care, meaning that they're so wrapped up in themselves that they can't be effective to anybody else around them. And they dominate the environments and everything about them. And basically it went into the direction of gluttony, in the sense of, like, there's never enough time for self-care. And that's unhealthy either. I had a gentleman call me. He's a good friend of mine. This was a few years back, and he was crying, and he said he was dealing with some thoughts, and he had depression. And I'm like, dude, stop being selfish. And that's just kind of me. And he's like, I'm not being selfish. I said, now people are going to get mad at me on this topic. Okay, I'm not a doctor or anything like that. This is just first, us, and second opinion. I said, most cases that I've been around people, depression is basically you're rooted in yourself. You're just thinking about you all the time. And he didn't believe me. And I said, come on over. And so he came on over, and, he was basically Eeyore walking in, and I said, let's go downstairs. And he's like, okay, like, this is weird. And I said, let's go. And I threw him a gi, and I said, put that on. And he's like, okay. And I was like, all right, we're going to wrestle. And
He's a martial artist, just to give some context to this story.
Yeah, I said, I said, we're going to wrestle. And he's like, well, I got to go to work. I said, you're going to go to work tired, worn out, and you're going to be very happy when we're done. And,
Right.
and so we start wrestling for like an hour and a half. And,
I remember this.
And he stands up and like, he's got like a glow and he's happy and all this stuff. And I said, so are you depressed right now? And he goes, no. And I said, guess what? You're cured.
Right.
And I said, my point to that is that if you're not serving somebody else in your life, then the inevitable thing that's going to happen is you're going to become depressed. And so self-care should only be a small window. It shouldn't be a permanent ongoing thing where you're so wrapped up in yourself that you can't see the hurt in other people and be effective there. And so my big thing is part of self-care is making sure that you're serving people so that you're giving your life meaning. And part of that is serving your family and your children and your wife, but also people outside of your you know, so, and I know I slammed depression there a little bit, and I'm not taking anything away from anybody who says, you know, the doctor says this, but my point is that I find most people, you know, when it comes down to the topic of self-care, oftentimes they want more of the self-care because they're not solving a problem in their life or they're not serving somebody.
Well, I have to say the other side. I agree with everything Dustin is saying. So this is not to, you know, counter what he's saying. It's just to add a different level, because that's what we do. Is I think what he's saying is most people, they accept the diagnosis and they succumb to it. And that's just the end of the story. And I think what Dustin is saying, okay, well, this is what we need to deal with, right? I mean, I've had my share of things that I've had to deal with from my past and things I've talked about on other podcasts, but I didn't stay there, right? Like, I mean, the famous quote, if you're going through hell, don't stop, right?
Speed
like
up.
speed up. Yes, TJ. They get through it faster, right? Like accept that there's a problem, right? Don't ignore that there's a problem. I don't think that that's healthy either. And I think that some people, and myself included, used to do that. So acceptance is a really powerful place, but then it's like, what are we going to do about it? Right. I mean, Dustin and I are both famous and we're tough on each other. Right. And we've gotten better. God, we've grown. Gotten is not a word. Sorry. You are. We've grown. But if I complain about something 3 times, he'll be like, all right, you're at your limit. You've said it 3 times. I'm coming in with a solution.
I got it.
And I'll tell him the same thing. Like, all right, like we've talked about this enough. Like, what are we doing about it? How are we, let's come together with a solution and not just stay here.
Amazing. Okay.
But you also sometimes, like, grief is very healthy, right? I mean, when my Nana, who lived with me since I was 2 and lived with my parents till I was, 26, she was my best friend. When she passed, I grieved, right? I mean, even when our dog passed away, like, we grieved. We helped our daughter grieve. And that's important. So I'm not saying just like run through it and just ignore it, but I'm also saying just don't stay there forever. So I think that might add the other side to what he was saying.
Self-care, what I mean is like, I'm trust me, I'm pro self-care. Like, give me my sign. I'll go out there in front of Congress. Let's go. Like, I'm down for it. I really am. But my point though is like, we've been around, not too long ago, we were around some people where their self-care has gotten way out of hand, and your environment is a reflection of your internal thought process. And so when your environment's getting out of hand, clutter's building up, dishes building up, mayhem is going on, complacency setting in. It means that you're too wrapped up in the self-care. You have an abundance of that, and you're not engaged into the problems that are pushing on you. And problems are healthy. I had a client call me up, and nobody could solve this problem. And he was like, Dustin, I'm blackballed from Google, and I was like, he's like, I'm blacklisted on Google. These big companies can't help me. They say they don't know what's going on. Can you help me? And so I was like, well, no promises. And found out that, unless he corrected a few things, he's never going to get unblacklisted. He didn't do anything wrong. He just did something out of... He trusted
the wrong people.
Yeah, he did something out of ignorance, and the people we trusted didn't take responsibility. And so it's like, I can't fix that problem.
Right.
But we were talking, and he was like, the last 3 years I've had the worst years of my business, and I don't know why. And we were sitting here talking, and once he kind of got his answer of like what was creating the problem of like why he was blacklisted from Google, he goes, and I said, why are you wanting to advertise? And he goes, well, I want more business, but I don't want more business where I can't handle it all. I don't want too much business. And I said, well, that's your problem of why you're having your poor years. And he said, why did you say that? And I said, I mean no offense when I say this, but I was like, I'd rather solve the problem of too much versus solving the problem of too little. And, too little, you're always behind the 8 ball. It never measures up. It never adds up. You don't have enough, and it's stress and frustration. But if you're solving a problem of too much, then now you're looking at completely different sets of problems and solutions that you can, because if you've got too much in your life, then you have need for people to be in your life to help serve, if that makes sense. And so there's room for people to be in your life. And that's what I tell people is, so what happens is they get in this mindset of self-care of like, I have to have this, I have to have this. And it's like, no, it means the problems in your life you're not rising to solve, and so they will stay your problems for as long as you accept them as your problems. And that's all a testimony is a testimony is a test that you finally passed. You keep taking the test until you passed it, and then you have a testimony. That's all that is. But people look at it as like, I'm a failure and I can never be good enough, or I never measure up. And it's like, no, just study, and you keep retaking the test until you're past the problem. I'm a big believer that once a defeated enemy should stay a defeated enemy. You shouldn't be going back down to the lower levels, the minor leagues, and picking opponents. You should be making your opponents rise to your level. And people aren't doing that with their problems. And they would rather forfeit self-care because they say, I need this. And with the gentleman that I invited to come over my house and we wrestled, he called me up at like 8 o'clock in the morning after his shift, because he did third shift. And he goes, I have not felt sad or depressed in any way, shape, or form. Now, I didn't say stop taking your medication. I didn't say stop going to see your doctor. What was happening was he wasn't engaging in the struggles of his life. That the natural byproduct was he became sad. And so when he got engaged into the struggle, there is a healthiness about wrestling with something that you don't have an immediate answer for. There's something that triggers.
It's the pursuit of happiness, right?
It creates certain thought patterns where you're pursuing something and you're growing and changing to match whatever the conflict is. But if you're living a life where you're trying to remove conflict out of it, then you're also saying, I don't want growth.
Right.
Because you're paid in direct proportion to the problems that you solve.
Right.
So if you're not solving bigger problems, then that's going to be the station of life that you're at. So
absolutely. Oh man. Yes, sir.
I like 9 minutes.
Okay.
Around 3:30, our kids may start guest starring.
And
on the
I was about to say, this is I'm looking at the clock and my friend, thank you so much. I think we have touched so much, and we can leave the rest to the next episode. I would love to chat with you again, because there's so much we can chat about. Yeah,
absolutely. We've done it.
Absolutely. So
they have.
Oh man, awesome.
Or
So
I guest starred, and then they were like, "Wait, your husband's doing podcasts now? Can he come now?" And I'm like, "Sure."
Amazing. So please, folks, remember, family is not an accident; it's a masterpiece. Keep building yours with intention. Intention is the part that a lot of times people are missing. So if you're inspired by Dustin and Anneliese Vance's story, uh, please, let's share your own journey with us. Write about your journey, and tag us, hashtag Dad Puzzles Community. Until next time, please, keep puzzling dads, and thank you for joining. Thank you again to Timothy and Tiffany for really, giving us company. And I really look forward to having, more people and them as well join us again in the, when we record again. I think this is amazing. So did you have any other last words, guys?
I'll let you go first.
No, I appreciate you inviting us. And thank you for sharing your time with us. Hopefully we were able to provide something for you. And
amazing.
We'll look forward to another time.
Yeah, and all
Please,
I would
please.
add,
Yes.
I met Suleiman on LinkedIn, so my name, how it's spelled on the bottom there, as long as that shows up on the video, that's where you can find me
Absolutely.
on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
You can
Yes.
also find me on nevermissamomentconsulting.com.
Hmm.
And if you go to the Let's Get Started page, you
Hmm.
can send a message there, mention Dad Puzzles, or if you're brave enough to try and
Amen.
spell Suleiman's name, you can do that. We
Amazing,
do
amazing.
have a
Yes.
first time offer for all of our
Hmm.
podcast listeners that reach out to us. Um, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can
Hmm.
send me a DM, just mention Dad Puzzles. So I know that's where you kind of heard of us from. Or
Amazing.
sometimes LinkedIn limits how many DMs you can send. So go to any of my posts. I'm not trying to get more engagement, but if you
Hmm.
send me a post there, hey, I heard you on Dad Puzzles, I'll shoot you a DM
Hmm.
myself, and
Amazing.
we can go from there.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, guys, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you again. And until next time, take care. Awesome. Awesome. I will stop this here.